Welcome to another episode of the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I am your host for this episode, Jay Christie. AC is, he's not here because he didn't have time to watch the show because he's a father of two young children. Okay. But we're not here talking about a Marvel thing. As you know, we talk about anything in the nerd world that excites us. And so as you can tell by the title, we're talking about Star Wars Skeleton Crew. And I feel like this is an exciting show that, hasn't been talked about a ton. But I feel like that's part of the reason why I wanted to get on here and talk about it. And to talk about it, I have two great guests. First and foremost, friend of the show, always coming on wherever we need him, Rod Morrow, the Black Guy Who Tips. Rod, how are you?
Good, man. Thank you for having me again. Can't wait to talk some Skeleton Crew hijinks with you.
Absolutely. And a first-time guest, someone who I saw tweeting about how much he likes Skeleton Crew. It's someone I've been a fan of for a while. I've had on other projects here and there. You know him as the producer of the George Lucas Talk Show, and he produces a bunch of other comedy shows in LA. The great Patrick Cotnoir. Patrick, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Starting it with the great feels like it's building it up too much, but I hope I can live up to that.
And while we usually promote our, Patreon and follows the river up top, just want to say, Patrick was, just tell us before we got on, talk about evacuating for the LA fires.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a thing that's still a pressing issue. And so, Patrick, do you mind telling me just a little bit about the fund that you've been raising money for? And we can hopefully give some money from our fans to this fund?
Totally. When does this go live? Just so I can.
This goes live tomorrow morning.
Oh, we love it so much. I work on the show called the George Lucas Talk Show. During lockdown, we did a lot of live stream fundraisers for things. We raised almost $300,000, I think, something like that for various different charities over the year, basically. And on this Monday, January 20th, starting at noon Eastern time, we're going to be doing a fundraiser for the California Community Foundation's LA Wildlife Relief Fund. Basically, that's a lot of words, but you understand what it is. And it's a foundation that's been around for over 100 years. It gives to people in California after natural disasters have occurred, and people who are displaced from their homes. And it's been a real rough week living in Los Angeles because of the fire stuff, and then of course lost David Lynch today. So it's just a very weird time to be here and to be trying to live your life in any kind of normal way. So we're doing this fundraiser on Monday. You do not have to watch the fundraiser to donate. If you want to toss in $1, $5, $10, $1,000, whatever you've got would be freaking rad. Our last two fundraisers, we did $40,000 plus for each of them. And this one, I would love to do more than that. I would like for this one to be the highest we've ever done. And I think there's a good chance that we're going to do it. It's a day off. You can watch it. It's going to be on Paul Scheer's Twitch channel called Friend Zone. And the website for the fundraising page is bit.ly/GLTSfire. GLTS Fire.
And that will be in the description on all the platforms this is on. And I do recommend watching it. I'm a huge fan of the George Lucas Talk Show. It's so deeply dumb. And also, we need to get the money up because the Wrecking Crew needs to go to Malta, and the people who know what that means. But is the whole Wrecking Crew still in it? Is Steven Weber still down or no?
It's a great question because I'm not going to explain this to anyone listening. I just want
just say give me yes or no.
I don't even know if Steven Weber knows that he's a part of the Wrecking Crew, but I think
he wasn't on. I don't even think he was on.
But I do think if we hit that number and the Wrecking Crew has to go to Malta, I'm pretty sure I can talk Steven Weber into going to Malta.
So, absolutely wonderful.
We'll see.
So, so we're talking Skeleton Crew, the new Disney Plus Star Wars show, and I feel like, and I want just an overview of where everyone stands. That I originally didn't know if I was going to watch this because while I've liked some of the, I like the Accolade a lot. I loved Andor, obviously, and up and down with Mando, Boba Fett. And I not famously, but on the show, I stopped watching Ahsoka because I was kind of like, I don't know if I need this. And so I was unsure if I was going to watch Skeleton Crew because I'm like, it seems like it could be a little Ahsoka-ish, Filoni-verse, yada, yada. And I started seeing really, positive things about it. And so, Patrick, I'll start with you. Were you always planning on watching it? Obviously, you do a show that's Star Wars related, so you probably at least be aware. But what were your thoughts going into it? Did you have high expectations, or was it just kind of like it's the Star Wars thing?
Yeah, I mean, I was always going to watch it. I'm pretty much all in on Star Wars. Even the things that I don't love as much, I can still find things to like in them. I think... and I don't know how either of you feel about most of the things, so this is not about you guys, obviously, but I do think the discussion online about Star Wars can be very exhausting a lot of the time. And my way of living, I think, is always better to just be like, I don't know, let's just have fun. It's fun. It's a dumb show for kids. Like, who cares? Let's enjoy it. Like, why does this matter?
Yeah.
So I was looking forward to the show because not a lot had leaked out about it. I am a leaks
Mm-hmm.
boy. I like reading leaks. I think it's fun. I think it's fun when they're
Mm-hmm.
fake, all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of stuff had come out about it. So it was very exciting to like kind of go in cold on this show and not know what was going to happen the whole way through. And it was fun. I was at a celebration in Anaheim. I think it was Anaheim when
Mm-hmm.
they announced it and like everyone came out and stuff. And that was very exciting just because no one knew what this thing was. And to be able to just get a cold new show that, basically has almost no connection to the rest of the Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
universe. Like there's Vane the pirate, whatever. Like great, okay. But that's it, and I think that's very exciting, and I think that they should lean more into that, go
Mm-hmm.
down new paths and explore new tones of shows and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that because it's fun, and I wish people would give it a shot, more so than it seems like they have. And I'm nervous that the online reaction to the Acolyte has scared a lot of people away,
Yes,
regardless
we
if
talked
you
about
think
that at length.
it's valid or not. So
No, I forgot to make clear because I feel like with Star Wars conversations, you always do need to make clear. This is
yeah,
I own a steel book of the Last Jedi type. Like this is
right.
where you're standing.
We
Like it's
love it.
not.
We love it.
This is not. And
Yeah.
Rod, I know you're similar because you're on for a lot of our acolyte pods, and obviously you got the pew 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 shirt.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts going into it? Were you expecting just to be silly fun? Were you like nervous about it?
For me, I was obviously gonna watch it. I watch everything Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Clone Wars, cartoons, I don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love the Acolyte. I hate that it didn't get renewed or
Yeah.
whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
that I've that anyway, some of the visuals in there and some of the fights and some of this like lore was just like groundbreaking stuff. And with
Mm-hmm.
all Star Wars stuff, I get more excited the more hands that touch it because I always
Mhm.
felt like what the universe, as much as I love George Lucas, what the universe having the imagination limit of just one man versus a bunch of people who've become fans over decades being like, yo, but what if this happened? That's like my type of nerd stuff. So I was excited about just it's Star Wars, I'm gonna watch it. But what I didn't know was the directors they would have. And once
Mm-hmm.
they put out like that list of directors, I was like, oh, they're not bullshitting. Like they're about to really like go for a home run here because these are some of my favorite directors that have touched anything, right? And so I got super excited, and then I felt it starring kids and being in a time period where we haven't really done much Star Wars live action lore. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
a perfect like jutting off point of like, oh, we can learn a little something about this time period, and it doesn't necessarily have to get bogged down by connection to other events.
Mm-hmm.
And when they introduce these characters and these characters don't have much connection to other properties within Star Wars or whatever, so we're not like, oh, and then we'll see how Yoda became Yoda or whatever. We're just like watching it to
Mm-hmm.
be like, tell me a cool story in space. That was cool. And then the first trailer gave me like Spielberg, like E.T.,
Mm-hmm.
Goonies, like it gave me that vibe, and I was like, I'm sold. And so yeah, that was my attitude going in.
Yeah. I think that I was a little bit. I had some trepidation because, and this is a bias of mine. I'm always a little nervous. You can be really hit or miss when you have big kid casts. If you have a couple kids that just don't have it, it can
Mhm.
really like because I find kid actors can be grating to me in a way that
Sure.
I'm embarrassed to talk about because I don't want to like blame the kids. But sometimes you watch something, you're like, oh, this kid just does not have it, and it really takes away from the show.
I think it's fine to say that as long as you're not being like this kid specific.
For
Like,
sure.
if you are
Yeah.
not naming the kids, you can say you don't like kid
Yeah.
actors all you want.
No,
It's okay.
and I think like and I think that they really did well, and I think the big thing that I think they had in their favor because I think it's nice sometimes not even like the kid actors is I think that a lot of times stories with kids like emphasize like they're helpless, they're kids, so they don't
Mhm.
they make the kid they make them being kids the dilemma.
Yeah.
And I feel like this show didn't do that a lot. Like there was occasionally there was things where yeah, them being kids is a dilemma, but they were capable enough and it didn't feel like things were happening to them. They felt like very active characters. And I think
Mhm.
that is what separates the Goonies from the things that try to rip it off, right? Because like in the Goonies, they're actually going on like an adventure. They're not completely helpless kids the whole time. But no, I thought that it really surprised me how fun it was and how, like you mentioned, that this isn't a thing that we really get a lot in live action. Like, we've gotten a lot of in between the trilogies. We've gotten a lot of like right after the Empire. We've gotten a lot of during, but we really haven't gotten a lot of during the Republic. Sorry, the New Republic.
New Republic, yeah.
Because I think that they're obviously scared because there's so much stuff tied up with people's feelings about the new trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the place I want to start is obviously the most important place to start, which is Neel is one of the greatest characters Star Wars has introduced in a very long time. The fact that he has a comb over is, I think, the best just aesthetic decisions they've made since they gave Sebulba multiple arms. Ron, I saw you post on multiple social platforms about how much you love Neel. I see you nodding.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you feel about Neel.
I'll kill for that little motherfucker, bro. Like, he's so adorable. And he has such a good heart. And having a character that's like naive and pure, it's like it raises the stakes of things. Because the thing about Star Wars that I love is that, like, Star Wars is essentially the hood, right? Like, everything in Star Wars is either like extreme rich opulence, which we've seen, or we've seen like extreme like Tatooine, which is essentially like going to the projects. And so we get our first taste of like a secluded suburban, like suburbs children who've been isolated from this like galaxy spanning war that has just like destroyed so many things. And they're just, they're just like ready to go out and see like spacefaring adventure or whatever. And like seeing like Neel still have heart, like when they went on the planet and like there's literally a civil war happening, and he like befriends one of these rebels and like gets his first kiss on the cheek or whatever. You just, like Neel, they leave the planet and Neel's like, that girl I had a crush on in third grade or whatever. Like, that was just like so adorable. And I think nailing characters like that works twofold, because what people will say about this series is, well, finally, Star Wars is for kids anyway. Yes, it is for kids, and I agree. But also, like, it's for the kids and all the adults to be watching. It's one of the reasons I can still enjoy it is, like, I can just retreat back to, like, I'm a kid. Like this is a simple concept. Good, bad, whatever, let's do it. And Neel was probably, like, the touchstone for all of that. As far as, like, and I know he's not the main character, but he's the one that, to me, felt the most like, this is a child seeing Star Wars for what it is, but still maintaining himself and not becoming deluded by it.
Now, Patrick, do you have any thoughts on Neel or any of the other kids specifically? I feel like they had a good group, and I feel like it was a good mix. I think 4 was a good number, I'll say. That they had like different types.
Imagine if I was like, nah, fuck Neel, he sucks. Like, imagine if that was my take.
That would be crazy, but I would respect that you said it with your chest.
Yes. Yeah. No, Neel rules. Of course Neel rules. And one of the things that I love about Neel the most is not even necessarily Neel's fault, but it's the show's fault being negative, but it's actually positive. In that almost none of these Star Wars TV shows since Mando or whatever have, excluding Grogu, we'll exclude Grogu on this, have had like an alien protagonist, a guy in a mask. It's rare that you get a guy in a mask who is there for the entire show. They kill off Queel and Mando, like all these people, and Queel's only in like 2 episodes or whatever. It hasn't happened yet, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong,
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And it looks great, by the way.
And it looks great. It looks great because they're using a mask, but they're also augmenting it with CG and all that stuff. And that is what I like the most about Neel, because I hope that means this will continue to happen in new shows, because it gets very boring. And this is a Star Wars problem in general, I think. Too many humans. Rogue One, too many humans. There should have been an alien in that group. It would have made it so much better, in my opinion. Because all these aliens are here, why are we not using them? You know what I mean? And it's great that everything has a droid. Great, sure. I want an alien. So that's what I love the most about Neel. Something I was talking to a friend the other day, let's rank the kids. Can we rank our favorite kid to our least favorite kid? Can we do that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
It's actually really easy for me. I would go Neel, KB, Fern, and then Wim.
Yeah, that was it. Damn.
Probably mine too, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, steal whatever the improv term is for that, but I...
No.
Yeah.
No, that's right. That's the correct answer.
And the thing is, Wim, they handled well, because his function in the plot can so easily be grating, and the fact that he
Yeah.
wasn't really that grating
Yeah.
to me is huge. Because the kid who's like, I just want to have an adventure, like that kid you hate a lot of
Yeah.
times in fiction.
And I
And
want
the
to be
fact
clear,
that he was like not so yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I don't dislike Wim at all. You know, I
Right.
like him. I
No,
want
not
to
at
see
all.
more of him.
Yeah.
But
And I think it was really smart because like Wim being your main character it works with him in that function, but that is also why he's not my favorite. You know what I mean? Like the way that they kind of utilize the other kids in their like supporting roles is what makes them so dope. It's like if you watch the Celtics games, Jason Tatum is probably not most people's favorite Celtic because he's not a full personality, but he is the guy you want to anchor that team around. That's how Wim felt to me when I'm like, oh yeah, the guy that knows the pirate adventure and like has a good plucky heart and spirit. But you know, I want to see KB, you know, like fix that ship. You know, I want to see Neel get that kiss on the cheek. You know, I want to see if Fern is going to be the like impossible white man action star that she's meant to be. Like I was so into like everything these other kids were doing.
I really like the contrast of Fern and Wim, because obviously Wim is the main character, but Fern I think is solidly the number 2 in terms of like importance. And I think that the great contrast was, and it's two very specific types of kids that we all knew growing up. Is Wim is the kid who desperately doesn't want to grow up, and he doesn't want to do the things that he believes have required to grow up. And Fern is convinced that if she just acts grown up enough, she'll have grown up. Like that she really thinks that And I think that the fact that like neither of those really is true. You need a little bit of both. You need to, Wim could use to be more responsible, and Fern could use to, live a little. I think that's always the best when you have characters of differing views where they meet in the middle. I mean, this is storytelling 101, but I think that those basics going on as you have so much stuff going on in the galaxy, so many new aliens, yada, yada, I think really helps. And of course, what really helps in the show is Jude Law as Jod, who I think he's just becoming one of the great character actors. His career is aided so much. I think if you asked Jude Law to locate Turkey on a map, he wouldn't be able to find it. And so it's really helped him so much. It's helped him so much that his hair is receding. It really is so good for him.
And
he's great.
He's really great in the show. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say the other thing that's dope about Jude Law is he's a Star Wars nerd. Like I remember him and Katy Perry going to the Star Wars universe world or whatever in Disney, like right around during the pandemic or something. I just remember pictures of paparazzi with them out there hanging out, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, oh wow, let me find out. Jude but I think it's dope when people that like something like that get in the universe like that, because he was chewing up the scenery and he was a rogue in the truest sense. Like, I think, and I get it. It's very difficult. There's literally 40 years of this property or whatever, maybe even longer. But it is very hard to make a rogue that feels like a rogue, because in Star Wars, the rogues typically have a heart of gold and they come through in the end, and you're like, yeah, like I don't really want to see Lando like betray the crew. That's like who I don't want to put a t-shirt with that on, but like Jude Law was giving me like betray the crew vibes the whole time. There's periods where he puts like a lightsaber to a kid, and you're like, yo, bro, come on, man, he'll do it. And that was like super important to this show. Like Jod Nana Wood is an iconic character to me now, just because. And I'm interested in where they go from here, because I'm like, oh, I ain't really seen anything like this before.
Yeah, I will have to say, and I regret to inform you, Rod, that you did mix up white actors. I'm like, why would Jude Law be there with Katy Perry? It's because it was Orlando Bloom who was Katy Perry's husband.
Oh, damn! Oh, my bad. I do white people confused.
I was frantically Googling trying to figure out that. I was like,
oh, my bad, y'all.
I assume that's what you meant.
Didn't they play in Pirates of the Caribbean together or something?
Nope, he is not in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Damn! Wow, I just got my whites completely mixed up. That happens from time to time, guys.
But
there's a lot of white people, in all fairness to me.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
I think the only thing they have done together is Tokyo Comic-Con in 2019.
Awesome! I do like comics.
Maybe that's what you're talking about. Were you at Tokyo Comic-Con at the Marvel panel in 2019?
They did have a similar. They had a similar career arc in the mid-2000s where they were everywhere and everyone got tired of them. The difference is that Jude Law is a talented enough actor where he was able to make up his career, and Orlando Bloom is okay. He's fine.
Oh man,
So funny. I love it.
But yeah, John. I don't know. I think the thing too about him is that like he holds a lightsaber to a child's throat, and you're like, oh, he might kill them. But you also don't get the impression that he is a sadistic, that he will get pleasure out of doing that necessarily.
Yes,
and
he's a true rogue. He's a true rogue in that. I've never felt, even when he was robbing the damn planet, I was like, I don't think he like wants to completely like kill everybody. I think he'd like to just have the money, and you guys are making that difficult for him today.
Yeah. And yeah, so Patrick, how do you feel he like compares to other Star Wars villains? Because I think, you know, there have been rogues before, but so many of the villains are like literal religious zealots. So it does feel a little different to have a villain that is motivated by something more concrete.
I mean, I was going to say one of the best decisions they made on this show is making it that he did not have a heart of gold, like we were talking about earlier. Like, I think one of the smartest things they did was like, no, this guy's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. Like, he may have a few moments of redeeming qualities, but like in the end, he's a bad guy and he wants his money, and that's it. And I think that is something that I don't necessarily think I expected them to do, because I was nervous they would take the safe route since it was more of a children's show. And I think that actually takes a lot of like commending. Give him a round of applause for that, you know, because it does feel like real storytelling. Thank you so much, Jake. It does feel like, you know, storytelling, and not in a, well, we have to cop out because this is a kid's thing. And I think he's great in the show. I think he is genuinely scary at some points, genuinely funny at some point, like is really able to play it all. And it's great that he, as you said, has like settled into this path of his career, because they really tried to make him a leading man for a long time, and he's good in a lot of stuff. He's good in it. But it just wasn't happening. And I think that the character actor arc makes so much more sense for him, because he's a lot more fun that way.
Absolutely. I mean, his problem is just that he was too good looking to be a character actor. I mean, that's the oldest take in the world. But like, you see him in Talented Mr. Ripley, and you're like, yeah, I understand why everyone wants him to be the lead of everything.
Of course. Of course.
The struggle is real.
He looks great too. That's the other thing. Like,
he does.
He's aging great. He's 52 right now, which I guess I thought he was older than that, but like, which means he was so young when he's in Talented Mr. Ripley and like AI and stuff.
Exactly.
Like,
he's one of the the thing about actors is you always assume that when they're playing a 22-year-old, they're actually 28 or something like that. And so whenever someone actually was 22, you're like, oh shit, they're still that young.
Well, the crazy thing, when you watch almost every actor, maybe you guys don't feel this way, I always feel this way. I'm like, oh, they're so much older than me here. And then they're like, oh, they're 21 years old, and I am almost 33 years old. Like, you know, my brain just doesn't process how old people actually are, I think.
It's a bizarre phenomenon. And I think that the thing he also does really well is he plays off. I think acting with children is something that a lot of actors don't do as well, and he really he doesn't feel like he's acting down to them at all, and that makes their performances better, you know. Totally. And of course, with them they have 33, played by Nick Frost. You know, he doesn't remember no Atten. You know, I think I think that they've obviously done a lot of different types of robots and droids in the Star Wars universe, and I think Pirate Droid is honestly a not a swerve I thought they would take, but it worked for me. I thought it was a fun character. He was a good voice, and all the pirate code stuff I thought was a really fun wrinkle, because once again, like, this is stuff that we know that you know, plunderers and pirates exist in the Star Wars universe, but like, they're always on the side, and we don't. I like the lore of that. You know, Patrick, I know you've probably read into more extended universe, this, that, or the other stuff than, you know, most people.
I try not
How did it feel to see like something that like is based in, like, because it's based in a code like a Jedi Sith thing, but it's completely separate, because of course most of the universe is not made up of Jedis and Siths.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I like about Star Wars and about the evolution into television for Star Wars, whether that's animated or live action, is that they are able to switch up the genre, switch up the tone, switch up all that. So like, going into this pirate thing, like, on the outside you wouldn't necessarily think that it would fit, but then you're like, well, there are pirates in Star Wars, like, why not just tell a Treasure Island story? Like, why not, you know, do all this? And I like the expansion of, you know, we've seen Hondo, all these pirates in the animated shows, and like you don't really get into like what a day-to-day thing is for a pirate in those shows. And here I feel like hearing the shanties and hearing the lore and about all the captains and what the code mean, all that stuff is like it just builds the world out so much in a way that is more exciting for me, because I'm hoping that again they will do more of that stuff that feels different but also fits within the plan.
And Rod?
Yeah, I love the whole pirate situation. And I think one of the reasons you can do this is because your protagonists are kids.
Yeah.
And so it immediately puts us in the mindset of children, and pirates is a very like children thing. It's Peter Pan. It's, we like these funny talking peg leg guys or whatever. And I love that they just talk like pirates from Earth or whatever, it's like a lot of yar. Even the way that the gun loads and clicks, like it sounds like those pirate guns instead of like a space laser rifle or whatever. That was like a super cool touch. And then when we're talking about SM-33, he also is operated kind of by this like rodent thing that's in his face, possibly. Like it's like we still don't know if it's like, was the sentient rodent just the one that was like making this thing work or not. And that was like a cool touch that they never really like define one way or the other, but always like I was concerned about that little guy when his head gets cut off and then you see the rodent scurry out and you're like, oh, thank God. So I thought that was really cool. And yeah, the pirate code is awesome just because it's another like rule book to follow that you're getting introduced to the rules throughout. Like when Jude Law gives that speech when he's in cuffs, but like at no point do you feel like he's not the one in charge. Like the way he's controlling that room is like he gets punched in the stomach and you're like, he meant to get punched in the stomach at that moment in that speech. Like that was like really dope, and it made Jude Law's character better because we are familiar with the Jedi, we are familiar with the Sith, we're familiar with mercenaries and all their codes and all of the things that they've said over the years. We're not familiar with this pirate shit. So like Buddy is up there like, if I give the right speech and get everybody the right amount of money, I can just take over the pirate ship. And you're like, okay, well, that is apparently those are the rules. And that kept me very intrigued with all of it. And then the last thing I'll say about the whole pirate thing, them fighting that giant big ass crab thing is so like, because we're doing a sea adventure and that crab thing was cool as hell, man. Like that was such a dope storyline, like the CGI and all that stuff was great. I love, Star Wars gonna have a big ass creature, you know what I'm saying? Like they gonna slide a big ass creature up on you, and seeing that crab thing come out was one of the like more interesting big ass creatures we've had in a while.
Jake, can I give you a exclusive?
Of course.
I think it was last January, we were in San Francisco for SF Sketchfest, and my girlfriend and I got a tour of Phil Tippett's studio, stop motion extraordinaire, did the frickin' chessboard and A New Hope and all this stuff. He made that crab. The company made that crab, and that was all a lot of stop motion augmented by CGI. We saw the crab. We got to see it. It was out. What? They were working on it. And they were like, oh, this is for Skeleton Crew. So I had no idea what the context was, but I've been sitting on this for a damn year being like, I know that crab's coming. I'm so excited to see that crab. And it was so cool. They had the studio set up and it was like, I don't know, this big, maybe something like that. And getting to see it on the screen was like, oh, yeah, I know that crab. That crab's my friend.
And you could feel the stop motion of it. Like you could feel that this is like more of a practical effect than just a giant CGI thing. And they just nailed the details of that thing. Like when there's a part where like spit or something comes out of his mouth and you're just like, oh my God, run, children. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. It was very cool.
I mean, and I think the thing that was fun about this show too, and it reminded me of early Mando, where it was like planet to planet. You see like you don't spend a ton of time in one given place. You get to meet a lot of cool characters, a lot of cool tiny, people popping up. It's like, oh, is that Alia Shawkat?
Yeah.
Voicing a owl lady. Is that Kelly MacDonald in Whiteface? And is that French director Matthew Kassovitz? But that's a great thing about these Star Wars TV shows is you're like, the amount of people that just show up for a day, it's like, wow. I like, Rod, how did you feel knowing, like, what if I were to go back in time to, you in 1995 and tell you that Jaleel White would be in the Star Wars universe? How do you feel about that?
I mean, honestly, awesome for him. And it was just because I wasn't sure he was ever gonna not just be Urkel.
Mhm.
Um, and now that he's like Pirate Urkel or whatever, that
Mhm.
was kind of a cool turn for him. I honestly, as one of my only like things about it that I wish we got more of is more Jaleel White.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he was delivering like his best like hammy like get those kids lines, but I
Mhm.
wanted him to give us a little more pathos, a little more inner workings of the
Yeah.
the actual pirates. Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't have minded spending a little bit of more time on the
Mhm.
with the pirate crew that was hunting them down, just to
Mhm.
kind of get into those characters. I feel like a lot of them, and which is fair, they're background guys, but a lot of them were just kind of like showing up to just always be
Mhm.
a step behind
Mhm.
Mhm.
what Jude
Yeah.
Law was doing. But nah,
Did
cool,
we have a
good for
favorite
him.
pirate? Did we have a favorite pirate?
I really liked. I don't know their names, but I
Okay.
really liked.
Do you like
Uh,
Beef? I like Beef. Beef's
is
my
Beef the
favorite.
one that like has like the stuff coming out of his chin and is around his head, like
Uh,
the pinkish guy?
no, this is a
No,
big white guy, but his face
no, no,
looks
no.
like ground beef.
Oh, that guy's good. I like
Yeah.
the guy.
His name is actually Beef.
I
Like on
mean, in that
Wikipedia,
case,
it is
that
Beef.
puts him over the top for me. Okay, then that's my
Yeah.
favorite. I didn't know his name was Beef.
I mean, I think
Hang on, wait.
does
His Wikipedia page is
SM33
actually
count?
Beef individual because there is also a page for beef, the concept of beef. So
Right.
Oh.
Oh,
beef
sorry.
individual.
Sorry. I'm thinking about Vane, who's also in the Mandalorian. I
Oh
like his
yeah,
look
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, we like Vane.
Yeah, nah, Vane's though. Does SM33 count as a
Yeah,
pirate
sure.
as a pirate? Oh,
Yeah.
that's my favorite pirate then. That was
Yeah,
he was cool.
And you have the guy who
that's
looks
great.
like a wolf, which is with a great look. Um,
Yes.
just a
Not
lot of good
Silmo.
looks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
What
mean,
the heck is
it's
it? Oh,
and I
Brutus.
think
Brutus
that
is his name.
yeah, brute. I feel like they just really, as you said, they really didn't skimp on the aliens, and I think that like it adds so much color, and it makes every scene so much more interesting when you're like, oh, that's a fully realized, and it looks almost all practical. And I'm not even one of those people who like is crazy mad about CGI versus practical stuff, but I think when it's at that scale, when it's like you see stuff in the background, you can always just tell when it's a lot of real stuff in a room, you can tell. And there's just so many cool looks and
I think
Hmm.
also like just as a, like we said this about Agatha too.
yeah.
With the practical stuff, like it also just opens up a different type of creativity for the
Mm-hmm.
directors and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
like when you literally see them like cut through a physical background and then
Yeah.
walk off the set, and you're just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you just wouldn't do that with CG. You wouldn't even think to do
Yeah,
that. You're like, oh yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have a CGI guy do some things in the background and you walk off. So like
totally.
that, like there's cool stuff where just like a wolf guy hanging out in the background with a wolf mask on, and you're just like, yeah, that's Star Wars. That is what it's like to
Mm-hmm.
be in a tavern full of villainy or what, like of aliens. That like that's how it should feel. It shouldn't have to be like, and we need a special cut for the CGI part right here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it just looked great. And I think that the thing that intrigued me most about the show, like plot wise, which I actually wish they dug into more, is I love the concept of a planet that basically is out of time and doesn't know what's going on in the rest of the world. Like, I
Hmm.
wish they actually kind of had some like reckoning with the fact that, like, oh, they think they're still working for a republic. There was a whole war, there was a dictatorship, and now we're
Yeah.
finally back to there being a republic again. But that is like such a fascinating concept to me. And you almost can imagine, like, uh you can imagine like a novel being written about like a city in like Siberia that was like that, because the Cold doesn't know the Cold War is over.
Hmm.
And I
Some
felt like
island
that just
somewhere. Yeah.
exactly, and
Mhm.
like the guy who thought that the soldier who thought that World War II was still going on 26 years
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I that's just like such a because I think that is not I think talked enough about Star Wars, and I think it makes a lot of stuff make sense. Is like this is a gigantic galaxy. There's so much space between all these planets. Like
Hmm.
it's so easy for these planets to be these are not different cities, these are different planets. And so it actually makes sense for a planet to be lost because like yeah, it's not that big, who knows where it is. And I like the idea that a planet could be so isolated on purpose that it's
Yeah.
basically like working for a false god because the droid doesn't know anything. And yeah,
Yep.
the fact that they haven't heard anything from the Republic. And how many years would that? How many years would this be? Like
What was the last thing they said they heard was that the
Was over
Jedi's
66.
or
So
66, so that would be like 25-ish, 26 years, something
yeah.
like that.
So it's that the droid has not heard anything in 26 years, but
Yeah.
basically the entire planet's not aware. Like
Yeah.
that is, I think, such a crazy concept. And I think is
and like
yeah.
they had a quasi almost religious purpose that they had been
Exactly.
instituted with the great work of
Mhm.
making all the money to fund
Mhm.
this, like that they didn't even really seem to understand what it was they were funding. Where I'm really interested in, if they get another season, what do the parents think about
Mhm.
the unveiling of, like, here's what your great work was going to, here's what that money was
Yeah.
going, here's what that work turned into for the galaxy. This is
Yeah.
why you're squirreled away from everyone else.
Yeah.
Like, I really would like to see, like, if they have any moral dilemmas about it, and
Yeah.
what that indoctrination did to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a
Totally.
really interesting concept, and I think Patrick, and I don't know about you, I feel like it really fits in with one of the themes I respond to most in Star Wars, particularly even though I think that they're not great movies. The prequels, the themes of basically like
I don't
unquestioning
know
systems.
what you're talking about.
Sure,
What do you mean?
on systems where you're not basically supposed to question anything, how that can
Yeah.
atrophy and allow for malignant actors. I feel like this is, even though they don't underline it, I feel like it's the same theme where it's like you're just not supposed to question, you're supposed to keep making the money.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope they dig into that with it. I mean, who knows if there's gonna be a season 2? I feel like the numbers are not what we want them to be, but it would be nice to learn more about this world and this. I was watching it last night with my girlfriend, and I was like, when the shield comes off and all that stuff, and it's the end, and they see the stars and everything. I'm like, those kids just fucked up their entire infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like, this planet is like screwed now because of the insane thing that just happened, and now they're gonna like learn about so much stuff that was like being kept from them. And what are the after effects of that? Like, even if they do a season 2 and it's not about the kids and it's about the adults just being like, I guess we just have a new planet that we have to run now. Like, who's in charge?
Carrie Condon like just at working about bureaucracy. I mean, honestly, I would watch that. Yeah, give me the Carrie Condon bureaucracy show. I'll watch that.
100%. Yeah, I mean, is she in charge now? I don't know.
I don't know. I also thought she was a really interesting character because she is so clearly scared to question anything, and I feel like they could it's especially in the last episode, some of her like decisions are more unflattering to her than I thought that they would be. I thought they'd be like, they're all going to come together now. I'm like, she doesn't want the shield to be opened at all, even though everyone's lives on the line. And I think that's realistic, and I like it as it makes her a much more interesting character than like the moment her daughter comes back, she changes her ways, and it's like, no, that's not how that would happen.
Yeah.
And of course,
it opens it up to a whole new world of possibilities that I'm sure we will find out about in a comic book or a book or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that's how it will be continued, as much as I want it to be continued in live action. But I will say, the fact that it has now been opened up for them into the real world does mean that they could show up in a Filoni movie or a Mando movie. You know what I mean? Like, this could become something that gets tied in, which, love it or hate it, it would be nice to be able to see the story continue in some way.
That's what I do like about having Filoni over stuff, is that Filoni doesn't really drop a lot. Like, he's like, I mean, there's shit. I mean, Ahsoka is a great example of just like, if you watch Clone Wars and Rebels and all this stuff, and then just like, they just didn't forget. Ahsoka didn't just like walk up the stairs and disappear. She's been in this universe and she still matters. I know that was your jumping off point, Jake, but like, as a person that was into all that stuff, like, I like that about Filoni, and it also gives me hope for stuff like this, or even to some extent, maybe even the Acolyte, where it's like, if he sees something and he's like, no, that was dope, and everyone else was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, there's a chance that we see like Manny Jacinto come back in some form, and we're like,
sure,
yes, thank you. So I hope we get something like that if we don't get a season 2. Although I would honestly just love a season 2 of this, because I feel like the way they ended this opens the world to so many more questions and possibilities.
Yeah, totally.
And like and one of the things that really fit for this was like how people will see Andor and this and think to themselves, these are like the opposite spectrums. And I feel like, no, they're very much in line. Like the bureaucracy of things, the don't question things, the fear that controls people, like all this stuff is in line. And just because someone didn't give like a gravelly voice speech does not change that this is all the same universe.
Yeah.
And to be clear, sure. If I had watched all the cartoons and stuff, I'm sure I would absolutely love all that stuff in Ahsoka. I mean, I do a Marvel podcast. I think the only person who can beat Filoni and not forgetting things is Kevin. I'm going to bring Feige back Ferran to here from Iron Man 1. Feige. I respect. Once again, is that alienating for casual viewers? Absolutely. I do a podcast about it. I don't give a shit. I'm not a casual viewer.
Right.
I'm excited. Like, bring back Raza. Let's go. I thought he outdid himself.
What a heat check. What a heat check to do. I saw
He's like, oh, you guys thought you thought it was cool that I brought back Tim Blake Nelson? Watch this. You've at least heard of him. But no, I think that like I like that they're having these pieces on the board, and I like that we have a foothold in this early New Republic, let's call it, because we really only see because we really kind of gloss over. We have Mandalorian, which is like right at the beginning of the New Republic, but it's not. It's not really New Republic yet because it's still the remnants of the Empire. And then we have the sequel trilogy, which is like as the New Republic is getting challenged by the First Order. And I think that there's like we really don't. I don't feel like we know as well in the mainline stuff the goings on of how this works. Like how do they build up a New Republic? And I think that I think there's also gonna be a lot of interesting stuff of how does the New Republic handle Aden, because I'm sure that they don't know it exists. How do they handle a bunch of these, because I think that like while they have this solid first season that's isolated from everything else, I think that this is both a problem for the people of Aden and a problem for the New Republic. Of there's this new planet that like has a ton of gold and is also clearly has some type of like it's a remnant of the old Republic in a way that they need to deal with. And there's just a lot of possibilities. And I'm saying that's always the thing I loved about Star Wars. And I know I harp on this all the time, but what viscerally offended me so much about The Rise of Skywalker is that it made me feel like I was an idiot for wanting more than the small view of the story. That like it felt like it was belittling me for wanting more than it just being about these handful of characters. And obviously it wasn't that. Like I'm not like actually offended. I'm not an adult, but like I like the idea. I like the promise of the last shot of The Last Jedi where you see the kid with the broom. And while no one in this story had force powers, it's like there are important people in the galaxy that don't have famous last names. And that's the beauty of when you're expanding Star Wars. That's the promise of it. I don't need to see, that's the old Family Guy joke. I don't need to see Boba Fett may need glasses. Like, I don't need to see that. I'm fine. Although we did get the gift.
I'll say he's doing a lot of paperwork now because he's the mayor. He's in charge of that town. He really
we did get the gif of him doing this, like, so that's good.
Like Amanda.
And also Tamora Morrison getting paid is always a good thing. So
100%.
Now, but here's I will say to go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say the one thing that bothers me about this show. There's one thing.
Yeah.
And it's something that ultimately doesn't matter. So I'm not that mad about it.
Yeah, this is a fine podcast to go on this.
Yes. Why, when they saw the hologram of Captain Tak Renaud, was his face blurred out or whatever?
Yeah.
Because he's not the supervisor. No. He's not around. He's not some guy that we know. Even if he was the supervisor, we didn't know what the supervisor looked like. So it wouldn't. It would be the reveal of when we saw the supervisor. We'd be like, "Hey, that's the pirate guy." Yeah. Why did they do that?
Is it just
like I don't? Unless they're building up to something else, which doesn't. This feels like a single contained story that does not need another. They could live without it. I just don't understand why you do that.
Also, it's a really great opportunity because I don't know if you noticed, and I've recognized the voice almost right away, that Alfred Molina randomly plays a minor character in it. Why John Watts obviously has a good relationship with Alfred Molina. Why didn't he sit him in a chair for 2 hours and do that? Feels like a perfect opportunity to do that.
Yes. Who was the voice for Ted? Let's see. I don't even know who the voice was for Ted.
Yeah, let me see. I didn't realize that John Hodgman did a voice. Good for him.
Yeah.
It
does not say who his name was.
Damn.
So
interesting.
And the thing I was going to say,
I don't think so.
The thing I was going to say
if you
too
know
is,
at it.
I think that a Star Wars adventure is honestly a lot better when people don't have the Force. Like a lot of the more compelling stories to me are like, you actually don't have the get out of jail free card of like tapping into this universal force and like getting a lightsaber and fighting your way out. Like, you know, some of the reasons, like I love Rogue One because of that, but one of my favorite scenes, and probably everyone's favorite scenes in Rogue One, is Darth Vader shows up and you're like, oh yes, okay, I get it now. Yeah, if you can't have the option of like even pulling out a lightsaber, there's just no point. This guy's just a Grim Reaper. And though that always feels better. Like when Jude Law does exhibit some force powers and pulls out a lightsaber, that feels like a big Joker in this. This like he's like slamming the parents around. You're like, I don't know how they're getting out of this one. You know, like that guy's got the big Joker, and so it elevates everything. But some and I, like I said, I love all Star Wars pretty much. But like some series where someone does have the force and they're the protagonist, like Ahsoka, you have to escalate the villainy so high. Like it's you know, like when you're watching like Clone Wars, or you're watching Attack of the Clones, or you're watching the Revenge of the Sith, and like Grievous has like 8 arms of lightsabers, and you're like, yeah, because like I'm not afraid for Obi-Wan at any point unless someone has 8 arms.
And I think the thing too with it, I have found that in Star Wars, when the person who, because obviously Jod has some training, but he's not clearly, as you can see, he is not a Jedi, and you know, he doesn't have that level. I feel like a lightsaber honestly feels like a more dangerous weapon when it is in the hands of someone who's not a Jedi. That like when it's a Jedi, it feels like balletic. When Jod is using it, it's like, oh no, this is a flaming knife that could cut through it. Like he doesn't feel it's not cool. I think it's not smooth when he uses it, and it's like, oh right, this is like the most dangerous weapon you could have in the room. And I think you're absolutely right. It really, it definitely does. You know, they don't need to have a crazy, because in the grand scheme of things, like in terms of like this threat, you can tell by once the X-wings come in, like. These pirates are not actually that big of a threat on the galaxy scale, but of course they are a threat to these people. And this power scaling is the dumbest thing people talk about on the internet, but it is important to have it like in, you know, anything can be an interesting, in the same way like a high school football matchup. If the players aren't really that good, but it's a similar level, it can be as entertaining as any football game because it's a similar level. Patrick, did you end up finding who, or no, it's a mystery?
No, it's a mystery. I don't know. I tried.
Maybe they were planning on casting someone big there or something. I don't know.
I guess, but I mean,
I didn't recognize the voice.
Me neither.
Yeah. No, there's no one. There's a theory on Reddit that it's Sam Witwer, which is possible. Who was Darth Maul in Clone Wars? But I don't know.
That would have been awesome.
I don't know. He does. They have a group of guys who do a lot of the like loop group stuff. Whether it's just like background noises or alien noises or whatever, and he's one of the main guys. So I would not be surprised if it was someone like that. But I don't know.
You know, and I'm happy that the show exists in the way it does, and I think the thing is like. It reminds me a lot of the conversation we have about the Marvel TV shows, because you know, talk about them ad nauseum. We're like, the thing I like about this, and unfortunate thing is, if this doesn't get, you know, renewed and people don't watch it that much, is like, I feel like these TV shows are at their best when they don't need to be super high stakes for the future of the franchise. I mean, I think that's more true with Marvel than it is with Star Wars. But I think that like the reason why I think some, you know, having not watched them, I think the reason why people love the cartoon show so much is because like they didn't have to carry the weight of being important for the future of Star Wars. And even though like there's a lot of money behind this definitely feels like it was not made with the weight of this needs to be the future of Star Wars. And I fear that the lesson that people will take, instead of like, maybe we should make these things at a slightly smaller scale, but make enough of them where it can still succeed. I fear the lesson they'll take is, okay, if it's not for the whole future of Star Wars, people won't tune in. Like that is that's what I fear will be, and I also fear that about the Marvel stuff too. And I feel like let's just be the exact opposite. It's like scale things down. If it needs to be a little, if it's not as expansive, fine. But like I think having like more of these where it's not as essential to watch all of them is actually better than having just like one or two that are like, if this doesn't work, that's 10 years of plans down the drain.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I do think that, you know, and Marvel tried this with Echo too. You know, they tried to put that branding on it, on like the
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, Branda. You
Yeah.
know, whatever it was called,
Mhm.
street style. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
I honestly don't even remember.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about.
Of course.
Yeah.
And no one watched Echo. You
No one watched
know,
it.
and
Yeah.
because I think if you tell someone that this doesn't matter,
Exactly.
then they're not going
Right.
to watch it. But if you tell someone, oh, this does matter and it is connected to other stuff, then they're like, well, I haven't watched everything else, so I can't. And there's no happy medium to that.
There's no happy medium. Yep.
So
which is interesting too, because a lot of these properties we're talking about are they got some of the better reviews.
Yeah,
You know, like
totally.
Echo got really good reviews from the people who watched
Yeah.
it, but that just doesn't always necessarily translate to views, right? Like Skeleton Crew, same thing, like good reviews, but might not translate to actual raw data of just people who watched it.
Yeah.
But I think also when you're talking about companies this big with this much money, I like to know that they're willing to make quality work for quality's sake, because that's the thing that always gets that's the big looming threat whenever, big Disney comes in. You're like, and now it's just a machine where they just want the money, and then the art becomes so secondary that we're just watching trash and we're all just mad at each other. But with, at least to me, some of these latest properties, I felt like, nah, there's love here. There's like directors who went in and did the damn thing. There's performances here. There's characters here. There's things that matter. And I think that's important. I don't know when they give up on that, but as of right now, I'm eating it up and I'm enjoying that they're at least attempting to do that. But yeah, that's absolutely a great point to point out, Jake, that it if you say it doesn't matter, it seems like people don't come. And if you say all the marbles are here, God forbid people don't like it, because then, we're doing what we're doing. And the other thing you mentioned about MCU versus Star Wars, I think one of the most interesting things about the Star Wars thing is that because they like putting out trilogies of movies and whatever, they slow down their own movie process in a way that the MCU will never. Like, MCU took like 1 year off and it felt like 10. They were like, guys, pat us on the back. We're not putting out any movies but Deadpool this year. And next year they're like, and we're back. So I feel like that pressure in the MCU is just going to always be there. But Star Wars kind of trips on their own feet and then allows these series to breathe a little bit more than an MCU series would.
Yeah. And I think they're in a good, but they're in a decent position with that if they don't mess it up. I think that, who knows? The future of Star Wars is always up in the air. And I already worry enough about the future of Marvel. I don't need to corporate conglomerates on my mind. But whatever happens, we can all be assured that people on the internet will blame Kathleen Kennedy. Why? Because her name's Kathleen and not John. It's not like she's one of the most successful producers in Hollywood history. It's not like all of the 80s movies you love weren't produced by her, but it's whatever. She doesn't know what she's doing. God. Did you see that there was a tweet today? I actually don't even do this on purpose, but I saw someone tweeted like all the legacy characters from Star Wars are either dead or injected with estrogen.
Wow.
Wow. I don't engage with that normally, but that did make me laugh.
I will search people typing the name Kathleen Kennedy into Twitter and just block them. I just go down the list. I don't even read the tweets, and I'm just like, boom, 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 gone. Because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to engage.
Star Wars fans are like they're the weirdest, worst fan base.
I think they're the worst. I love Star Wars, but I think they're the worst.
I would say they're the worst fan base. But they're like the weirdest, worst fan base because George Lucas wouldn't want any of this. No. You know what I mean? Like, George Lucas did not create Star Wars like, this is a genre for the white men and straight white men only. Like, he's not. Once that man made Red Tails, I was like, you guys got to let this go. This ain't his wish, okay? Just go support the movies.
Yeah. It's like, it's not this simple, but it's like George Lucas is very outspoken about race issues. He's been married to a black woman for multiple decades. He's like, also his politics are extremely far left. Like, it is so, but I mean, that's the way that, the whole thing is, I talked about this before with Marvel, but I think it's much more prevalent with Star Wars because it's been around for so much longer. The movies, I mean, it's just, if it's, people clearly are mad that they're not 8 years old anymore, and they're mad that stuff doesn't make them feel like they're 8. And I can psychoanalyze that forever, and I have on this podcast already, so go back and listen. But any final thoughts? I can't do it again. I don't have it in me.
No. Respect.
Any final thoughts on Skeleton Crew you want to get out, Patrick?
Yeah, you should have to pass a media literacy test to watch Star Wars. That's my final thought. And I
a good
think a lot
point.
of
That's
those people
not
would
a bad
not do.
idea.
I think a lot
I'm
of
trying
those
to think
people
what
do.
would be the best. What would the best media literacy test be? Like what? Like you have them watch something, and like
Yeah, and just be like, who's the bad guy here?
yeah. I'm
You
no. I'm trying
know,
to think of like the best movie to
are the
like.
stormtroopers the bad guys?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. But final thoughts on Skeleton Crew. I really enjoyed it. I think it's very fun.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments where, when I was watching it the first time, I was not super hot on them, but I think in context as a whole, you go
Mm-hmm.
back and you're like, oh, I understand why that happened, and blah 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 blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. You know, and I'm excited to watch it again in like a year. You know, I'm excited to take
Mm-hmm.
some time off
Yeah.
and then be able to watch it all in 2.5 hours and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it like a movie. I miss Star Wars movies. I'm ready for another
Yeah.
Star Wars movie. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of these shows could be movies and maybe
Yeah.
should be movies. I don't necessarily think that this is one of them, because
I
I
don't think so.
enjoyed the episodic nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I do miss. I'm ready for Star Wars on a big screen. Give me it. Give me it. Give me it.
Also, when are we gonna get the Bryce Dallas Howard directed Star Wars movie? Like, what the fuck?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm
we
ready.
need
She's
I'm ready.
Hollywood.
that.
Like,
Yeah, she's great.
nepotism can't like do that for her. What are we doing?
I know.
Like,
I know.
because she's so. I didn't know
And
she
she
directed the episode she directed, and I saw it, and I'm like,
Yep,
oh fuck, there's another great BDH episode, of course.
another
Yeah,
one.
she's very good. I
That's
don't
all
know
she
what the
do.
touch is that she has, but like, you know, and you know what?
It's
Kathleen
not something I would
Kennedy.
have predicted either.
Here's what I'm gonna say. Kathleen Kennedy, I assume, saw that in her or was part of the
Yeah.
team, you know, behind that choice, and I think that is something that normies, you know what I mean,
No,
normies
say
who
it,
do not
Kev.
work in the industry don't know what a producer does, and
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that, hey, guess what? She's behind every choice that you do like as well.
Of
She
course.
has her hands in everything, and the things that you like, she's in charge of. The things that you don't like, she's in charge of. But also, other people are in charge too. So it's
Yeah.
something that it's very frustrating time to be on the internet when you are trying to
Yeah.
explain that to people. You know?
Yeah, yeah. The thing that I was gonna say when you're talking about blocking people with Kathleen Kennedy earlier, it's like the number one problem is they just don't know what a producer does. Like that's the beginning and end of it.
Totally.
Mhm.
But Rod, any final thoughts on Skeleton Crew?
Yeah, I got a few. I'll try to go through them
For sure.
quickly.
No, it's fine.
I love the trope of KB being the kid with asthma because they always have that
Right.
kid in all these. And that's always like my favorite thing. And this is, of course, like a sci-fi way to do the kid with asthma.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gives us this great moment between her and Fern, where it's like I'm always keeping up with Fern to prove that
Yeah.
that this disability doesn't affect me.
Mm.
And like they passed the Bechdel test with that with that interaction, you know, where it's like this is our own problem with each other, which is just a really cool touch. The score and the cinematography, I really have to give a lot of credit to. The music was pitch perfect and had little
Speaking of
elements.
nepotism, shouts to Mick Giacchino.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
We need.
Sorry,
some
it's
nepotism
Giacchino,
sometimes.
isn't it?
I think it's Giacchino.
Giacchino.
Okay, because I know there was some
Giacchino.
consternation about it when he was on your show.
No, it's Giacchino.
Oh, okay.
Also, the soundtrack comes out tomorrow.
By the way, I'm
Oh,
joking
word?
about the
Okay.
nepotism. I realize I'm talking to someone who's met Mick Giacchino is very good at what he does. I mean,
Yes, he is very good. But you know, he also acknowledges that he works a lot with his father and stuff. So it's okay.
But that score is a beast, and I love the element.
Yeah, it's really good.
Like the hints of like I felt like they honored the genre of like the kid movie coming of age story, with all of this stuff in here. And then, like I said, last thing I just want to reiterate, Jude Law was just so amazing as a real true deal rogue. We haven't really seen one like that since DJ from The Last Jedi, where most of that wasn't even like that. DJ was like, we were like, maybe he has a heart of gold. It was just us assuming, like, right? They wouldn't let him be evil. He's like, guys, I'm evil. I just want the money. And you're like, oh damn, you did say that. You did say that the whole movie. And so it felt good to like have a guy in this film that in this series that portrayed that. And Jude Law's acting was so good because he acted shady enough for kids to be like something shady with him, but not so shady that the kids were like, we should never do anything he says or work with him. And that was like a beautiful, funny portrayal. So those are my final thoughts.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And I think you're right. Jude Law really anchors it into being like fully realized and not just like because obviously it is for kids, but it's richer than that because they have a real performance at the center of it. yeah, I know some people are not high on DJ in The Last Jedi, but I don't know. Something about Benicio del Toro doing ticks, I'm willing to
Yeah,
forgive
he's
over
fun.
any other actor. He can
Yeah, he's
do
fun.
17 ticks in the same character, and I'm like, absolutely, Benicio, good job.
Yeah, well,
He's
it's
fun.
Benicio del Toro's DJ is which they are like his name stands for "Don't Join," right? So like
Yeah.
I just feel like he did the thing that Denzel did when he won the Oscar for Training Day, where
Yeah.
like. Is it that we're so shocked that Denzel was the bad guy, or is it that we just did not think Denzel was going to play a bad guy because when Denzel would never play that role? And I'm not saying Benicio would never play a bad guy, but like Star Wars would never let a guy on that side be bad. He always comes through in the end. Like, I know you guys thought I was a piece of shit, but actually I hit the button and saved everyone. And Buddy was just like walking off with a box of coins, and you're like, damn, Buddy really evil. So like I like that in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
That's very fun.
Yeah. And so yeah, I feel like, if you watch Skeleton Crew, I'd recommend it to people because I think that, not that I don't want to do NBA ratings discourse with Disney Plus shows. But I think that if you support stuff, if you like stuff, you should support it and get other people to support it, yada yada.
They didn't shoot a lot of threes, so for all y'all complaining, they didn't shoot that many threes. There were a couple fights.
Actually, the thing is, I think Kathleen Kennedy needs to widen the court and strengthen the. Anyway,
I think dunks should count. Star Wars lightsaber fight should count for 3. That's all.
I mean, the big problem is that they were load managing Obi-Wan, so he wasn't in the game. Sorry, Patrick.
I don't know what any of this means.
It's there's a lot of discourse about how the NBA ratings are down, and a lot of people. The thing, and this is honestly the same thing with movies where people are just picking the thing that they don't particularly like about the NBA today and saying that's why the ratings are down. And so yeah, it's we're making those jokes.
If you're watching this video, you can see my eyes glaze over a few minutes ago. Just like deadly smile and be like,
I understand. So Patrick, once again, I'll have all the stuff in the description. So just where people follow you on socials and follow along with the George Lucas Talk Show as they should, because I'm a huge fan. I've said it on the show before. Love the GLTS.
Thank you. Monday the 20th, we're doing the live stream. All of the shows are on YouTube. You can just type in George Lucas Talk Show. It'll all come up. I recommend finding a guest that you like and just watching that episode. Jake, what episode should they watch?
The Rachel Zegler Life Day from 2 years ago.
Oh, from UCB. Oh, yeah, it's a good one.
I mean, Rachel Zegler she's the guest that really got me into it, just because I think that she's one of the best young stars.
She's great.
And the way that she completely gets it will never stop amazing me. I mean, she answers the call at the Oscars. I mean, she's the only person to join a podcast, to join a live stream during the Oscars.
That's true. And then you can find me on Instagram at Cotnoir, on Blue Sky, Patrick Cotnoir. I'm still on Twitter. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm
Patrick
still
Cotnoir there. You can also listen to my new podcast with screenwriter Brian Lynch, who wrote Minions and Secret Life of Pets. It's called Hey, That's Me, a commentary podcast. We're doing commentaries on movies and TV shows with people who never got to do them. And we had the one Lucas-related one. Candy Clark did American Graffiti. We have some actual Star Wars ones coming up, though. So
that actually reminds me, I forgot that he wrote Minions. Truly, yesterday, I just had the urge to pull up the King Bob scene and watch it.
Yeah.
That scene's great.
Minions great. Minions is really funny.
Minions is I watched it for the first time like a year ago, and I texted my brothers.
Really
I'm like,
funny.
Is Bob one of the best fictional characters ever created?
That Minions movie is really, really funny.
King Bob. All right. And Rod, where do people follow you? The Black Eye Tips podcast, great podcast. I've been seeing your clips. Your clip about flatbreads, incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That actually started from a tweet. But follow me on social media, Rodimus Prime on Blue Sky, Rodimus Prime on Twitter, and follow my podcast, The Black Guy Tips comedy podcast. Do it 4 or 5 times a week with my wife, and we just talk pop culture and politics, jokes, comedy, all kinds of stuff. And we're gonna have Jake and AC on soon, and we'll be talking to them about MCU University, and all the stuff that goes into making this podcast. So I'm looking forward to that. So make sure y'all check out that crossover episode.
Absolutely. You can follow me at the Jay Christie, follow the show at MC University Pod. And if you enjoy this and you want to get on the Discord and hear our bonus episodes, you can join the Patreon for $3 a month. You get the Discord and a mailbag episode and a franchise movie episode. We're doing the John Wick movies, so John Wick Chapter 3 will be this month. And so look into all of that. Follow us on YouTube if you don't already. Subscribe on YouTube. We do the videos, I use so much space on my computer to make these freaking hour-long videos. So the least you could do subscribe. I'm kidding, of course. But yeah, this is why AC gets paid the big bucks, because he's better at this than I am. For Patrick Cotnoir, for Rod Morrow, I've been Jay Christie. Have a good one.